Hello and welcome to my channel. The release of Firebase for Season 2 has kept me playing for countless hours, but I've also given Outbreak a try shortly after its release. I knew pretty quickly that this offshoot from traditional zombies wasn't my cup of tea, as it takes too long to get across the map. I don't want to feel like using a vehicle is a requirement in zombies, and as well as the slow map navigation, the number of zombie encounters is drastically reduced from the main entry zombie maps. So as I've finished playing the other zombie maps and Outbreak isn't for me, I'm eagerly awaiting the next main zombies map. I've got 7 ideas that I think would be cool for the next zombies release, so let's get started. So the first thing I want to talk about is the possibility of a Kino To Totem remake. There have been rumours for a while that the next zombies map will either be a remake of Kino To Totem in its entirety, or a new map which would include part of Kino To Totem and some new areas. I personally really enjoyed playing Kino To Totem back in Black Ops and as part of the Zombie Chronicles pack, but I have thoughts about its use as a new map. In my opinion, a complete remake of Kino To Totem with no extras would be fine, but it wouldn't be very exciting. Lots of zombie players have been there and played that already. I'm sure the initial response of a remake would be great, but realistically the excitement would only last for a short while until the nostalgia fix had wore off. I think the release of a brand new map, including part of Kino To Totem, would be much more of an exciting prospect to me, because it would provide that nostalgia hit while also providing new areas to explore. Both Maschine and Firebase feature portals, either to get to a new location or a new dimension. Perhaps the new map could begin as an exact remake of Kino To Totem, and after linking the teleporter, the player could choose to go to that new area. I think it could be pretty cool if players needed to go between both areas in order to either gather perks or parts from both different areas. I'm sure there would also be players who would just be happy to stay in Kino To Totem and go for high round runs. I do like this rumour, I just hope it's not just a simple remake and that there's more substance to it. I think the next zombies maps need to be a bit more of a challenge. I don't know how many hours I've put into Firebase, but it's a lot, and especially when playing in a duo, I have never failed Firebase. As a duo, I've played Firebase for a 3.5 hour session, and we decided to extract at round 45, not because the map was getting too difficult, but because we both decided we wanted to do something else. It was getting too easy and too repetitive. Don't get me wrong, it feels good to get to high round counts and be able to survive for many hours, but there becomes a point where surviving without challenge simply gets boring. This is the reason why I'd like the next map to be harder to survive on, and I'll be more specific about what I mean by harder to survive. I want to be struggling to get to round 25 or 30 regardless of whether I'm playing solo or part of a team. I want to be getting downed more often. I want to be forced to train zombies around many areas and not just be happy stationed in a small area of the map and be cozy for hours. To me, having a higher difficulty would make it a lot more satisfying when you manage to extract or get to that next multiple of 5 or 10 in round count. In my opinion, zombies have strayed away from survival, and it's now a case of how long can you be bothered to keep the grind going for, rather than can we actually get to that next milestone. I'm going to talk about some ways that I think would increase the difficulty but also make the experience more fun. I think that mixing up the special zombie types and elites would significantly increase the difficulty. After playing Maschine and Firebase for many sessions, I'm very familiar with the same elite and special enemies appearing again and again, and I'm therefore pretty versed at defeating them. You could argue that throwing more and more special and elite enemies at the player would make them harder to deal with, but in my experience this is simply not the case. What I'd like to see is a second version of the mimics which can transform into any other elite or special enemy, so they could be a Tempest, a Megaton, a Mangler, etc. They could transform maybe every 5 seconds or so to keep things interesting and provide the player with a bit more to think about. I think this could be taken a step further and include all elite and special enemies in the next map rather than sticking with just a couple of special enemy types per map. If the player had to deal with both mimic types, Manglers, Megatons, Tempests firing electric bolts at you, and maybe even more special enemy types all at once, the variety of gameplay would increase, and I also think the fun factor and difficulty would increase too. I think that the play space needs to be more cramped and less open than in the current maps in Cold War. I've been playing Call of Duty Zombies since the mode first appeared in World at War, so I can remember the original roster of maps being much smaller, claustrophobic and significantly harder to survive on. The early maps made it difficult to survive in one place and try a camping strategy, while also making it more difficult to train zombies around as the rooms were much tighter, and this meant that zombies got funneled towards you much quicker than today's zombie experiences, which are far more open. I'd like to see the next map have more narrow arenas, forcing players to move around the map to avoid getting crowded, rather than it being a perfectly viable strategy to stay in the spawn location in Maschine, just for one example. When I went back to play Kino To Totem, I was reminded that no matter where you are in that map, you have a fairly small area to work with. The effect of this narrow play area is zombies are often on your back very quickly, and I needed to be far more aware of where zombies were coming from so that I did not get caught unaware. I also found that it was necessary to be moving around the map since the small rooms are not ideal to stay in for more than 10 seconds or so, especially in higher rounds. In the first 2 maps in Black Ops Cold War, I can keep backing up in circles for ages because the player has so much room to maneuver. By making the arenas small, it forces the player to move around more. It makes the players need to be more aware of their surroundings and raises the tension as you get crowded much faster when areas are shrunk and more narrow, which in my experience also makes zombies far more fun to play while also presenting more of a challenge to the player. I think some additional challenges for the challenge machine would be a great idea. The challenge machine is a fantastic idea and gives players extra objectives to go for while playing zombies, while also offering some great rewards for completing them. What I'd like to see, however, is a bit more variation in the available challenges. Personally, I'd like to see some less optional challenges, which I'll explain what I mean by this. If you get a challenge to eliminate as many zombies as possible, but zombies now only take damage to the foot for the duration of the challenge. This type of challenge would be great for Cold War zombies as it would increase the risk of buying a challenge, but would also provide a limited time change to the gameplay, which would help to reduce the sameness nature of zombies. A few other ideas I came up with: critical hits only do damage, but all zombies will explode upon kills. Melee only, but melee is now permanently insta-kill for the duration of the challenge. All weapons have infinite ammo, but if you stop firing, you will gradually lose health. You get the gist. I don't know if these suggestions would be fun or not, but I'm just trying to come up with some different ways to inject variation into the gameplay, rather than basically repeating the same process or challenges over and over. So, moving away from map difficulty now. So far, zombie players haven't really had much to cheer about when it comes to operators. I'm sure some players are very happy to be able to play as Samantha Maxis, but I feel like some more zombie operators would be really nice. I think it's pretty obvious that making Richtofen, Takeo, Dempsey and Nikolai available as operators would please lots of Zombies fans, while also selling lots of operator packs which will please Activision. Of course, what better time to launch the 4 of them as operators than alongside a map which they originally appeared in, Kino To Totem, if this was part of the next Zombies release. I'm sure there are other characters from Zombies history that players would like to play as, so why not make them available as operators? To me, I don't see why it would matter if there was 15 operators on each side or 50. At the end of the day, they only have a cosmetic difference, and more of them would just provide extra customization and variety for players to choose from. I think a different kind of wonder weapon would be a good idea. I'm not familiar with every wonder weapon that has existed in Call of Duty Zombies over the years, but I'm not personally aware there has been a melee wonder weapon. Even if there's been one in the past, I'd quite like to see one in Cold War Zombies. All of the wonder weapons that I can think of have decent range, and they don't put the player at risk when using them. A melee wonder weapon would be slightly more risky to use, as you're obviously closer to the zombies, and I think this risk would be a good thing. Perhaps a sword wonder weapon could slice through all enemy zombies, but not through elites and specials. The sword could be personalised by applying one of the ammo mods to change its properties to your style. Maybe Pack-a-Punching could turn it into a claymore, which would increase its range and increased damage, along with maybe an extra special thing that the developers could think of. Another idea was a club wonder weapon which could swing at enemy zombies and send them flying. Maybe this could be powered up by getting kills with your secondary weapon. So if you got 20 kills with your secondary weapon, then slamming the wonder weapon down would do like tier 1 damage. Maybe getting 40 kills would make it do tier 2 damage, and all the way up to legendary tier 5 damage if you got 100 kills before using it. Just a cool idea. I don't know whether it'd work or be fun, but just something different to try. So these have been my ideas for up and coming Zombies editions. I'd be interested to know what you think of them, and let me know in the comments what features you'd like to see in the next Call of Duty Zombies release. Thanks for watching.